So it would be useful to see that. I think given, Councillor Barker's already alluded to it, Labour's manifesto was essentially sort of 3 words. So perhaps the kind of lack of detail here isn't that surprising. But I'm worried that some of those statements are so vague that they sort of lose all meaning. There's a lot of kind of motherhood and apple pie, a lot of just doing the day job from my perspective. And it's sort of a list of a lot of things that we should be doing as a council, but I'm worried that there's not enough ambition as to how we go further and how we deliver more. Councillor Birkin was very persistent in reminding us that when we sent out papers at short notice like this, that it wasn't acceptable. And I hope that he will be consistent in agreeing with me on that point. To have these papers on Friday is not really good enough in my own point of view. I was aware, obviously, that they were going to Cabinet, so I checked the Cabinet papers in advance of Friday, but we have a lot of new councillors here who weren't aware of that. So the first our group saw of this was only, or most of our group only saw of this was sort of towards the back end of last week. The key thing that I'm most concerned about is the lack of consultation, though. This is the last council plan that was brought to full council in 2019, followed 5 weeks of consultation, public consultation, huge amount of activity. There was a press release, there were radio interviews, staff and member drop-ins, an article in the news magazine, social media, all those sorts of things. And we had quite a decent response rate. The council's about to consider an item on incorporating collaboration and being open and transparent. But where's the evidence of this on the council plan? And on that basis, I think the Conservative group will abstain. We recognise it's your administration. We don't want to stand in the way of your council plan. But from our perspective, we think that it being the first council plan is not necessarily in the county, for example, is not necessarily the best thing. We would have preferred actually more time being taken, a more collaborative approach, more opportunity for more members to feed in, and public consultation to ensure that it met with the views of local residents. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Councillor Shipman.
Thank you, Chair. I agree with everyone that spoke so far in that the aims are admirable. But I think the Managing Director referenced in the Services Scrutiny Committee there was a detailed document somewhere, and I was expecting that to be sent out with this, and we don't seem to have got it. So we're just voting on a set of aims at the moment without any detail as to how we're going to achieve any of them. And I think we really could have done with that in advance of this debate, so we all know what we're voting for. And I feel that that's been missed. So I'm kind of in a bit of a predicament whether to vote for it or against it at the moment.
Councillor Cupit.
I don't know why it's so far forward, Chair. Thank you. I think I agree with a lot of the points that Councillor Dale's made, that this seems to be lacking in detail. Appreciate Councillor Shipman's comments about there may be a more detailed document behind it, but again, would expect as elected members that we would have seen that. And I think that, it feels rushed. Councillor Barker's just mentioned that you're the first council to bring this forward. It's not a race. It's about what matters, isn't it? So I think agreeing with Councillor Dale's comments about the lack of consultation and engagement of this, I don't think any of us here today would disagree with the headline aims, but I think you've had 3 months already, and it doesn't really seem like there's anything behind them in this plan, certainly with what we've been presented with today. And as Councillor Dale said, most of it seems to be pledging to do things we did without taking them to the next stage or progressing them, or statutory things such as the food service plans, etc. And I'm just, as a final big point, I'm quite concerned by the key topics that are missing from this. Appreciate it can't have everything because it'd be reams and reams long, but you don't once mention the Claycross Town deal, regeneration, car parking, which I know we'll come on to later. And most notably, you never mention anything to do with growth or our town centres. I'm sure our local businesses and shops will be quite disappointed with that, and I certainly am. And you don't really mention any of our specific places in North East Derbyshire, other than in the sort of factual intro. We have a really diverse and fantastic district, and it seems to me like this plan sort of doesn't recognise that, and it could be a general plan for anywhere with the headline aim. And just as a final point, I think what encapsulates all the points I've made most clearly for me is the typos and grammatical errors throughout this. I don't blame anyone for any typos, but as a key council document that you're going to work from for the next 4 years and be held accountable to, I would have expected a little bit of proofreading, and I'd have been happy to help with that. So in line with Councillor Dale's comments, I respect the democratic mandate that you've got, but as a member today, I can't support this, so I'll abstain. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Hancock.
I think I'm bellowing, Chair. Thank you, Chair. If on behalf of our group, because I was the only one who worked with Clive, if you could pass our condolences on as well. He was a very nice gentleman and a pleasure to know. Again, I raised in business scrutiny that there's no detail here at all. And it is style over substance. We've got a nice, pretty looking document with lots of nice colours, but absolutely nothing to tell us how it's going to be done. And again, I'm going to pick up on what a couple of other members have said already. Councillor Barker's kind of said, well, let's get it here. It has been rushed. It's been put through to us. And this really should have been probably a quarter into this year. When we've had time to do a consultation, we've had time to actually go properly through scrutiny, because I mean, one of the key things that's been pushed so far is that everything should go through scrutiny and cabinet. Well, this was delivered to scrutiny. It wasn't debated by scrutiny, certainly not by the business scrutiny committee. We were told this was what was going on and it was presented. So I think we're not even living up to our own words already.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? If not, Councillor Barker to reply.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for those comments. Like I said, it's an evolving document, this. We wanted to hit the ground running, which we've done. It's a document there in front of us. I know Lee's whispering me here, there are some details at the back of that are being formulated, I think, as we speak, Lee, aren't they? And we'll all get sight of them. We are trying to align scrutiny up with this, so you will have input. All councils will be able to have input in how this evolves. So I'm more than confident that this is a good thing. We're also looking at the KPIs, the key performance indicators, for people that don't know what that is, because we want to align them better as well. So we're not just counting beans. It is for a reason. Those performance indicators need to be specific to what we're trying to achieve. And I'm more than happy for this council plan to be passed today. And thank you for your comments. Did you want to say anything, Lee, on that? Sorry, Connie.
Yeah, well, go on then. I'll just pick up a couple of those. I mean, apologies, first of all, there are a couple of typos. Councillor Cooper is correct. I don't think it's been rushed, but certainly probably ambitious is one way of describing it, and trying to present back to the public, I guess, what this administration, they felt they were elected upon. So a lot of time and effort's gone into this. It's certainly not been rushed. There's a hell of a lot that is not on the table at this point. I'll grant that. Huge spreadsheets that contains the detail. We've particularly held off around the performance management framework, rather than trying to shoehorn things into a performance management framework. It's been clear, we've been clear throughout this period that we want to be clear what we're trying to do, and then build a performance management framework around that. So that's all work that's happening at the moment. Been to all 4 scrutinies and explained that period of time that we're in the middle of now, but that'll run until early autumn. All the granular detail will be contained there, all the performance management framework and everything else. I think this was about making that statement, that outward facing document, to say, you said, we're doing. I guess that's it, Chair. Thank you. Thank you. So we now move to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? Any abstentions? And that is carried. Thank you. So item 8 is the Council Scrutiny Committees. So I'm going to ask the Assistant Director of Governance and the Monitoring Officer, Mrs. Sternberg, to introduce this, please.
Thank you, Chair. This follows on from the previous item on Council Plan. At the annual meeting, Council approved the establishment of 4 scrutiny committees. The areas and themes of these committees relate directly to the Council Plan, objectives, etc. At the time, no terms of reference had been developed. Since then, the terms of reference have been developed and discussed with each of the 4 scrutiny committees. They have also been considered by Standards Committee. They are now before you for approval and for adding to the Constitution. Thank you.
Thank you. So the document needs to be proposed and seconded. So Councillor Gillett. Thank you. And do we have a seconder? Councillor Burke. Thank you. So any comments or questions? Councillor Dale.
Thank you very much, Chair. I think just given the above comments about, or the previous comments rather, about the council plan, I'm concerned about limiting scrutiny committees to only following the lead of the council plan. Obviously, we talked about the council plan lacking a degree of that detail. So how exactly those scrutiny committees are going to scrutinise that without the data set, I understand that the comments that will come, but difficult to say at this stage how that's going to work and how that's going to interact. And I'd be concerned that agendas of committees might be quite light and lacking in focus if that's the only, if they're limited to quite a narrow aspect of the council plan each. Previously, we always used to do an annual review at every scrutiny committee. I'm not necessarily saying that's the best thing, because I think actually that made scrutiny committees not as agile as they perhaps needed to be. So I'm not suggesting necessarily that's the best thing, but at least it gave it a specific kind of focus. So it'd be interesting to know how we're going to sort of give that that focus to it, whether it's a quarterly review or something like that. I think would be interesting to know. And I feel like scrutiny committees are being limited a little bit in terms of this approach. That they should be independent. They should be able to operate as they see fit. It feels a little bit like a straitjacket, to be honest, and not sort of open and collaborative and transparent. I think just an example. What about issues that aren't covered in the council plan? Just to give an example from my own personal experience, our council plan was produced before we had COVID, before we had the town deal. And you know, how will scrutiny committees be able to respond to those sorts of issues that arrive post the council plan being adopted and be able to scrutinise them? And I'm sort of worried that solidifies a kind of blind spot. You know, if we purposely exclude stuff that's not in that document, how do scrutiny committee? I'm a bit unsure as to the purpose of that. I mean, the budget is mentioned as a topic that might be scrutinised, but obviously, what's the purpose of audit then? Audit is there to scrutinise the budget. If we've got another committee that's set up to scrutinise the budget, I'm slightly concerned that's devaluing the role of audit. So I think on that basis, we're struggling to vote for these changes. I think we not against changing scrutiny's terms of reference and changing how we do scrutiny. I think that's to be welcome, but concerned about limiting it solely to a council plan focus. Thank you, Chair.
Any other comments or questions? No. I'm going to ask Councillor Gillett to respond.
I think the first point to make is that this document doesn't supersede any of the other the rules in the council constitution with regards to the agenda and how items get on the agenda. Certainly, as far as I'm aware, they are still there. This is obviously a living document, Councillor Dale. It's a new document. The council constitution is reviewed annually. So by this time next year, it will have been looked at again. All we've done at Standards is simply take on board the comments that have come through from the committees, the scrutiny committees and the officer recommendations. If there proves to be any serious problems with these terms of reference, I would expect us to look at them again. This is, as I say, this is a living document. That won't change in a doubt. It allows the scrutiny committees to kick off their workload rather than waiting for things to happen in the first instance. And obviously, we've heard already about the links to the council plan and making sure that the council plan is implemented in the way that council wants it to be implemented as well. So while your comments or your concerns may be understandable at this stage, hopefully, if there are any issues, we'll iron them out over the next 12 months.
Thank you. I think there is a technical issue around audit. I think Mrs. Sternberg, if you could elaborate, please.
Yep. Thank you, Chair. Yes, previously the budget has gone to the Audit and Corporate Governance Scrutiny. This fulfills the function of the budget going to scrutiny to be scrutinised. As we separated out the Audit Committee, and it's no longer a scrutiny committee as well, we need an arrangement in place for scrutiny to consider the budget as part of the budget policy framework. And this is what we're, put in the proposal.
Thank you for that. So it's been proposed and seconded. All those in favour? All those against? Any abstentions? And that is carried. Thank you. So item 9, values in the Constitution. Back to you, Mrs Sternberg.
Thank you, Chair. Again, this follows on from the council plan item. The report sets out the extra value that, the values that are in the Constitution, and also outlines the new one that is proposed via the council plan. Standards Committee has considered this and recommended it for inclusion in the Constitution, and it's here before you for that decision. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. So we need a proposer. Councillor Barker.
Yeah, can I propose that, please? And again, just on moving that, there is a genuine desire to be open and transparent as much as we can be going forward. I know we have this thing, at council meetings, and it's about me and you or whatever. There's lots of other people in this room, and it's about changing that culture so that people feel they've got a voice in the council, irrespective of whether you're a backbencher or on the cabinet or on the shadow. So it's all that. And while we're moving that fifth one, which is being collaborative, open and transparent, we also need to take notice of the other 4s that are still there. So hopefully we can live up to those expectations as well. So I'll move the recommendation in 1 that we approve the addition of the 5th value. Thank you.
Thank you. And a seconder, Councillor Birkin. Thank you, Councillor Birkin. Any comments or questions? I'm going to go to Councillor Adlington Stringer first, just for a change of voice for a moment, Councillor Dale, and then come back to you.
Thank you. My only observation was that open is now including the values twice. The first value includes the word open. Just wondered if that's a little bit repetitive and we could be a bit more creative.
Thank you.
Very true. That's
just. I'll come back to you, Councillor Barker, in a
no,
moment.
that's all right.
There's some more questions. Councillor Dale.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Adlington Stringer's more eagle-eyed than I, because I hadn't even noticed that, and I wasn't going to say that. So I think from my perspective, we will vote for this. No one can argue with the sentiments within that. I think what I would say, though, is that actions speak louder than words. Clearly, we're grateful for the collaborative approach so far in terms of the sharing of vice chairs, absolutely. But we have already seen on this agenda a council plan that hasn't had consultation. I'm not sure how open that's been or collaborative in terms of working with the district to produce that. So, as I say, we will vote for the recommendations, but obviously remains to be seen how well we do on that front.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councillor Shipman.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just repeat what I said in the scrutiny committee on this. I agree with Councillor Dale that actions do speak louder than words, and when it comes to being open and transparent and collaborative, being a word that's been put in there and this administration is trying to promote, if you look at the allocations of the vice chairs that have gone out, there's one group on this council that's not getting a representation on that front when all the other ones have been included. I won't say that's collaborative. I would say that's purposely excluding one group whilst trying to be collaborative, or at least trying to show to be collaborative with the rest. And I will point Councillor Barker to the motion that was passed at the last meeting, which put restrictions on motions that come to this council chamber, which was something that backbench councillors had an opportunity to bring any motion they wanted forward at each council meeting. And again, that was passed. So I'm struggling a little bit to understand where this openness, transparent and collaborative administration is coming from when the actions so far have told a different story.
Thank you, Councillor Shipman. Any other comments? Councillor Barker to reply.
All right, thank you. And the proof will be in the pudding. I accept that, Alex. I think that's fair. Regarding the other thing, Councillor Shipman, I think from our perspective, if we are going to be collaborative and all this, I think we've got to trust the people that we're working with. And on several occasions, you've let me down on that. So hence the decision that we made at the last meeting. The motion, I think there's been a long time coming regarding the restrictions. I think that's going through standards and things like that. So it's something, again, we can keep reviewing at standards committee, and if that's not working. But there is a genuine commitment to change that culture at the council about working better and involving backbench councillors more in the process through scrutiny or wherever. That's what we're trying to achieve. Thank you.
Thank you. It's been proposed and seconded. All those in favour? All those against? Any abstentions? And that is carried. Thank you. So item 10, schedule of meetings for 23-24. So back to the Assistant Director of Governance and Monitoring Officer, please.
Thank you, Chair. An interim schedule of meetings was agreed at the annual council, including this meeting. It was clear that changes to the proposed schedule of meetings were needed. These have now been worked through with members, and the proposed schedule of meetings until May 2024 is recommended for approval by council. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Could we have someone move those? Councillor Birkin, thank you. Thank you. And do we have a seconder?
Yeah, I'll second.
Councillor Barker. Any comments or questions? Been proposed and seconded. All those in favour? Anyone against? Any abstentions? And that is carried. So item 11, the Stonebroom Community Governance Review. Back to you, Mrs. Sternberg.
Thank you, Chair. The report sets out the history of this matter. This started with a petition to council to consider establishing a separate Stonebroom Parish Council. Considerable consultation has been carried out and details are included in the report attachments and paperwork in the members' room. The executive summary of the analysis of the survey results is included in the report, and the parish council letter is attached to the report. The recommendations leave you with a choice. You can either choose A, the establishment of a separate Stonebroom Parish Council, or alternatively, you could choose recommendation B, not to set up a separate Stonebroom Parish Council. There will then be a need to publish your decision for everybody to see and to contact people who have expressed an interest to tell them the result. Recommendation 2 is out of date. Might I suggest that it is left open so that a report on the further outcome of the publication can be presented when the consultation or when the information has been sent to relevant people. Recommendation 3 repeats the existing delegation to the Managing Director so that officers are able to move the process on between council meetings, including, if necessary, revising the timetable. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Do we have a proposal for the report? Councillor Birkin.
Move it, please, Chair.
Thank you. Do we have a second for that?
Yes, I'll second that.
Thank you. Any comments or questions?
You want to do that?
Yeah, thank you. If I could just add, Chair, I'd just like to thank the previous working group and election staff for put an awful amount of work into this project. A lot of consultations taken place, by several methods, leaflets, through the media, meetings. Unfortunately, relatively few people took part in the consultation, and again, when the second round of consultations had to be taking place as well. So the feeling is generally there that the case hasn't been made as such. What I would be recommending is that we choose option B, which is not to establish a separate Stonebroom Parish Council. But at the same time, I'd like to make a recommendation that we amend this to say that the council will consider warding Shirland and Higham Parish Council before the next elections in May 27.
Thank you. So
I'll second those.
the slight amendment and the decision to go with not establishing a separate council. Are we all clear about that? So Councillor Cupit first and then Councillor Weatherall.
Thank you, Chair. I'm happy to support that recommendation today. I think it's fair to say, as one of the local ward members, and I don't know if the other local ward members want to come in, that following the parish council elections in May, I think there has been a change of dynamic on the parish council. There's been a change of personnel. There's still a lot of experienced personnel there as well, but it feels a little bit different. And certainly, whilst I wouldn't say I've spoken to everybody in Stonebroom or in the parish, I've spoken to some people and they've sort of said, do you know what, we're quite happy to see how it goes. It would seem a little bit strange to separate and do another sort of election and move into the costs of that, etc. I know, as we discussed before. I think what I would ask though is that we sort of sort of seek the guidance of the monitoring officer and also the proposer and seconder, that alongside the warding point that we, because I understand that if we say no today, it sort of closes it off. So I wonder if there's a way for a couple of years, I'm seeking sort of clarity on this in a second, if there's a way to sort of pass it back to the parish council to feed back on if there's still a sort of level of concern, so that if the parish council decide to do a referendum or whatever in the future, that the district council would relook at it. So I don't know if there's a way that we can sort of keep it open rather than closing it off in the recommendations, so that if there is a feeling, you know, in a year's time or whatever, that it could be relooked at rather than closed off. So that's all I'd ask for, but otherwise happy to support the recommendation.
Thank you. I think, I know I said Councillor Weatherall next, but I'm sure you won't mind if I ask Mrs Sternberg just to respond to that point.
Thank you, Chair. No, there wouldn't be a way for you to make a non-decision today. You have to decide. But you speak about the 2 years. That's quite right. That's 2 years from the petition, which was last year. So it's a lot sooner than you think. And then another community governance review could be carried out if that was the wish.
Thank you. Councillor Weatherall.
Yeah, just a question. Is that on? Yeah, just a question. I can see legal implications have been added. Are there any financial implications for us to consider?
Mrs Sternberg.
In terms of making a decision not to have?
Well, either way.
Either way. In terms of if a decision not to have a Stonebroom Parish Council, it's just the cost of your officer's time, etc., sorting out the rest of it. If there were to be a new Stonebroom Parish Council, considerably more effort would have to be put in by a variety of officers, including my finance colleagues, to help separate the two councils out. In terms of, you know, is there a particular cost for a fee for something? No, but there would be a lot of work in that respect.
Councillor Hancock.
Thanks. I think just actually to pick up on Mrs Sternberg's point there would be a slight change. It would actually reduce the cost of by-elections if we went with a warded parish, because obviously if there was a by-election, it would only be that ward, so there would actually be a minor reduction that way. I have to be honest, my sympathies are a little bit more with Councillor Cupit here, because I think we do kind of need a little bit of a let's try it and see, particularly given the fact that we've already said there's a change purely on the whim of a different set of people on there to what was there before. So there are kind of concerns in terms of long term, but I think warding is kind of a decent interim option. So with that amendment, I'd be happy to support it.
Councillor Foster.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, as the chair of the previous working group on this, along with Councillor Ruff and Councillor Welton, I'm more than happy to support this recommendation. I think councillors that were here at the last administration will remember my arguments and my recommendations as chair of that working group. And yeah, this makes complete sense. So very happy to support it. There was just no groundswell of opinion. The numbers just weren't there, and that's what it was. So it was a really non-political, open, transparent recommendation last time. So very happy to support that. As for the idea of a referendum, it's something I sat when I spoke to the last parish council before the elections of Shirland and Higham. It's something I put to the councillors there as something they could do and that they should consider. That'd be the next step for me. I know it's not a governance step, but it was like the next common sense moral step, if you like. So that's something I put forward there. So yeah, really happy to support this. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councillor Shipman.
I'm just wondering if the monitoring officer could give some guidance on whether warding it's a possibility, because I thought wards only came when district and county wards crossed each other, and therefore it created a ward within that parish. Can we just have wards wherever we decide?
Sternberg.
Well, I'm not saying that it's definite in this case, but yes, we can certainly look at it as the principal council in relation to parish councils. That's something we can review. So yes.
Any other comments? Councillor Birkin to reply.
No comments. Thank you, Chair.
That's it then. So we move to recommendations, and just to be clear, it's 1B that's part of the recommendations. And the warding element that we've heard about that's been added today. So all those in favour? Anyone against? Any abstentions? Then that is carried. Thank you. So we move to item 12, which are questions asked from members under procedure rule 9.2. So we're going to start with question A. It's up to you whether you want to read your question in full or you're submitting your question as written and you don't have to read it out. So first question A is Councillor Liggett to Councillor Pickering. Councillor Liggett.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor Pickering, I just wanted to ask, do you intend to honour the Conservative Group commitment to emptying the green bins for 12 months of the year straight through? Thank you.
Councillor Pickering to respond.
Thank you very much for your question. It asks if we're going to honour a commitment. I question that there was a commitment. What we saw is some dithering about for nearly 4 years, and a headline appeared just before the election. That's not really a commitment, but it is electioneering. And I think it was not very responsibly thought out, the 12-month bit, before you made a promise to residents of North East Derbyshire. But that's been the Conservative position all along, to make unfulfilled promises. However, we've just consulted with residents through the Citizens Panel on waste delivery, and we'll listen to that and shape the services accordingly. We have in the council plan that's just been approved today, committed to providing an effective and efficient waste collection. If you've not seen it in there, I can announce that we've reduced the suspension period by 3 weeks, and that's on the bin collection schedule. What we will do is undertake to determine if the amount of garden and food waste collected between December and March actually justifies the amount of CO2 that's released by those vehicles driving around to do that. In our council plan, we've agreed to be, or we've promised to be cleaner and greener, and we'll try to live up to that responsibility rather than just make off the cuff promises for 12-month waste collection. Thank you.
Councillor Liggett, do you wish to ask a supplementary?
Well, I'm very disappointed, to be honest. As you know, I represent a rural ward, which a lot of us do. I think most people know that I work as a gardener tree surgeon, and I'm well aware that climate change is making our gardens behave very differently. I mean, I'm personally still mowing in December. And then, of course, we seem to be having twice as much as cutting back thanks to all the rain.
Can we have a question, please, Councillor
Sorry.
Liggett?
Well, not really. No, I'm just not very happy that I don't think it's cleaner or greener.
It's not a question, Councillor Pickering, but do you want to respond to that?
Well, it's not a question, is it really? But you see, what Councillor Liggett is actually indicating is the overall view of what the Tory policy and philosophy on climate change is. They're in denial of some of it. And just because she has a few more grass clippings to clean up doesn't mean to say that we should continue to pollute the district unnecessarily.
Thank you. Question B, Councillor Cupit, your question, please.
Thank you, Chair. I don't need to read it out, Councillor Barker, unless you'd like me to.
I can read it.
Yeah,
And
I can
Councillor
come back
Barker-
with a
Councillor Barker to
supplementary.
respond.
There you go.
Yeah, and the short answer is yes. No, I will go on a bit. That's done it. No, well, to be clear, it's only one scheme that will form part of ambitious affordable housing growth plans. As I mentioned in my spiel at the beginning, we are looking at acquiring and building more council houses, not just in Stonebroom. I didn't understand whether any timescales attached to these bungalows or not, but if we're hoping in the very near future there will be. So yes, we are definitely carrying on with the Stonebroom bungalows.
And I can see you've got a supplementary question, Councillor Cupit.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Barker. That's really good news. There were draft timeframes in terms of submission of a planning application, and then obviously Ricknold in terms of implementation. Just as a sort of supplementary question, obviously recognising that there are a lot of vulnerable and elderly residents in that area, many of whom have spent their entire lives in Stonebroom and all their families live there. It is going to be a challenge in terms of a replacement project and a need to do it sensitively. So can I just get your sort of formal commitment as well that you'll commit to working with myself, Councillor Liggett and Councillor Rowe to keep us updated and to work with us on the replacement scheme, given the work we've put into it and the sort of relationships we've forged with residents and Ricknold to date?
Councillor Barker.
I'm more than happy with that. I was involved with the original thing, the bungalows in Eckington and Killamarsh, and it was difficult to keep people happy that lived in those prefabs. They wanted to live next door to the person that they're living into now, and it were hard work. But the community involvement people at Ricknold were brilliant. They did everything they could, and I'm more than happy for you to be involved, whoever's involved in that, because it is difficult. They all want replacing, but the people have lived there a long while, and it's very sensitive. Thank you.
Thank you. Question C. So, Councillor Foster, your question for Councillor Barry, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. The UK Shared Prosperity Fund, designed to replace EU structural funding. This is monies from central government, for those that don't know, given to district and boroughs to distribute some 2.6 billion over 3 years. That's across the country. I'm sorry, I'm having difficulty with this microphone. Bear with me. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. North East Derbyshire was given 2.58 million out of that to spend over that 3 years. The last administration made some allocations across the district. My question relates to this, and I'll read it out. So it's to the portfolio holder, Councillor Barry. Will the portfolio holder confirm that the new administration will honour the financial commitments already made by the council in relation to its allocation of the UK Shared Prosperity Fund and the investment plan? Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Barry to reply.
Thank you. Well, in the same response as Nigel is yes. Basically, we will be honouring and delivering the North East Derbyshire UK's Prosperity Fund investment plan, which will cover 3 financial years, which is 2022 to 2025. As the programme timescale suggests, all funding needs to be spent by March 2025. Officers and I are mindful of that and working hard to ensure that the priorities and contracted outputs and outcomes are delivered as planned. This includes regularly monitoring progress of supported activity and setting deadlines for provisional offers where match funding is required. If any challenges arise which affect the ability of the projects to be delivered within the required timescales, then Cabinet members will consider alternative solutions which appropriately achieve the contracted criteria of the UK SPF investment plan as previously established. This may in turn create opportunities for new applications and activity to come forward, which we will publicise as appropriate.
Thank you. Supplementary.
I do have one, Chair. Thank you. I think what I'm looking for is reassurance around 2 specific geographical areas. I'm looking for reassurance for the people of Eckington around the 200,000 that was earmarked for Lansbury Park in particular. And secondly, for the 500,000 or 19% of the fund, which was allocated to improvements to town centres, high streets, paving, landscaping, street furniture, lighting and public art. This was with priority focus given to Dronfield, or rather Dronfield Civic Centre. So my question is, is this council still committed, specifically this, if we can make a record of this, is it still committed to spending 200,000 in Eckington and 500,000 in Dronfield on the Civic Centre?
Councillor Barry.
Thank you, Chair.
Again, yes. Prior to the election, the last administration made funding offers to several parish and town councils that required match funding in order to deliver these projects. These councils all have until the end of September to confirm their plans and to show that the match funding is in place. This is to manage the risk of being able to deliver a scheme by December 2024. The same timescales apply to Eckington Parish Council for Lansbury Park. We're hopeful that all the parishes can secure and confirm the additional funding by that deadline and come back with their detailed and costed delivery plans. Cabinet members will consider the next steps if they are unable to achieve this. So that's in relation to the Eckington one. In relation to the Dronfield, officers are currently trying to engage with local landowners for the development of our priority site. If these attempts are not successful or timescales mean that the development is not possible, then Cabinet members will consider how best to address the position at the appropriate time in order to meet its spend and output commitments. Hope that answers your question.
Thank you. Just to point out that under item 12, which is questions from members, and according to Constitution, it is time limited. We have just gone to 15 minutes. So I think on this occasion, I'm going to allow the 2 further questions, but in future, once your 15 minutes is up, it's up. So this is because we're still relatively finding our way with the new council. So I'm going to allow question D and question E, but please don't read them out. So Councillor Dale's question to Councillor Barker as read. So that's question D. Councillor Barker to respond.
Please, Kevin. As read, can I go?
Yeah, that's why I said Councillor Barker to respond.
Thank you. I didn't know about that. 15 minutes for a question. There you go. Anyway, I honestly couldn't believe this question. It's when on the same day I got this on my desk, it was the same day as County Council announced they were going to put school meals up by 40%. And it was like, I can't believe that. That's it. If it weren't so serious, it'd be laughable. It would be funny. But I could go on about how the present Tory government's helped cause this cost of living challenge, as they call it, but I won't. To answer your question more specifically, we'll accept that some good work has done prior to the election, which of course we will continue to do and build on. However, since the election, we have done several things. First and foremost, we reinstated the grant to Derbyshire Unemployed Workers Centre, and we are aware of the great work they do in helping people navigate the very complex welfare rights and benefit systems. Also, I noted in the newly adopted council plan, we will support existing and new businesses to support new and existing jobs. We're also looking at further community-led support through the UK Shared Prosperity Fund, which will focus on social financial inclusion. Also, I know Rick Nudd are working with our tenants, helping with all the cost of living issues they're experiencing. And hopefully you can rest assured that we are indeed making meaningful progress in helping people with the government-induced crisis. Thank you.
Councillor Dale for a supplementary.
Thank you, Chair. I'm very happy to sit down with Councillor Barker and talk through the issue of school meals. But if the very future of an important service like school catering is under threat, then it's incumbent upon us to take difficult decisions to keep it going. And despite all of the noise that I've heard from Labour, I've seen absolutely no viable alternatives being put forward for how they would deal with the issue and what else they'd cut in order to keep prices artificially low. And that's a neat segue back into the topic that we have at hand here, which is the District Council's response to the
Could we
cost
have
of
a
living
question,
crisis.
please, Councillor Dale?
Yes, Chair. All I've heard so far is not a lot of new alternatives at all. Can you really demonstrate to me that you are actually going to deliver further focus on cost of living, having made it a key plank of your election campaign? What specifically are you actually going to do over and above what the District Council was already doing? Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Barker to reply.
It's a tricky one, that, Alex, to be honest. I mean, we're a district council. A lot of this, it's way above what we can do as a district council. We can signpost people to various different authorities, different helps and different things. It's all down to Department of Work and Pensions, what different benefits they get. There's lots of issues. We are a small cog in a very big wheel. And we are, and I've acknowledged what you did prior, we're good, you know, signposting people to where they could get the help and all that other stuff. But we are committed to carry on with what you've did and hopefully carry on and help as many people as we can through this crisis, I suppose. And I can't say no more than that.
Thank you. Question E from Councillor William Jones, so taken as read, to Councillor Pickering. So Councillor Pickering to reply, please.
Thank you, Chair. Well, we can see. Thank you, Chair. We can see yet again another claim to a commitment from the previous authority, from the previous administration, without them actually doing anything about it. Hollow words, really, that sound good with no action. We've got a question here that asks about commitment to SPDs. Well, supplementary planning documents are attached to the local plan to give more detail, further detail to actions within that local plan, and can offer further guidance on development and specific sites. If there were really a commitment hasn't, but we will be updating that, the local development scheme, later this year to outline the timetable and stages of that review process. In the council plan, we've committed to encouraging sustainable places to build and acquire sustainable and affordable homes, and we'll be reviewing the council's climate change strategy.
Councillor Jones for your supplementary, please.
Thank you, Councillor Pickering. Just one quick question. We haven't got much time. Due to the onerous requirements associated with post-construction installation of heat pumps and charging points, does the council intend to insist on developers future-proofing the new build construction so that future modifications can be accommodated at least cost and disruption to the household? This is particularly important in terms of affordable housing construction, because the sort of tenants who take those properties up will not have the funds and the means for the extensive modification. Thank you.
Councillor Pickering to reply.
Thank you. Yes, well, as I said, we've got that commitment in the council plan, and we'll ensure climate change adaptation is a key consideration in the design process, with further guidance for new build, refurbishment and extension of both dwellings and commercial buildings. And there is reference in there to electric charging points that will be publicly available.
Thank you. That brings the end to the section on Procedure Rule 9.2 for questions from members. And just to reiterate that today a precedent has not been started for exceeding 15 minutes. It was just today's leeway, but from now on, the 15 minutes will be adhered to. Item 13, to consider any motions from members under Procedure Rule number 10. So we've got motion A proposed by Councillor Shipman.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to propose this motion today, which is to make use of the new powers that are coming in as of next April to increase council tax on empty homes in the district. We've got a rising number of empty homes in the district. There's 1 in 66 homes that are currently not available to local people. I know the council has unfortunately had a lack of staff in this department to keep on top of the issue that's getting worse. But I think it's time we now start looking at and using all of the powers that are available, particularly this one that's coming into force next year, so that we can start addressing the rising number of empty homes that we have in this district, so that houses can be provided to people to get on the housing ladder. Thank you, Chair.
Do you have a seconder? Councillor Hancock. Thank you. So open to the council for debate. So Councillor Barker.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, thanks for the question, but I reckon we've beat you to it, to be honest, Ross. We recognised this challenge some while ago about with empty homes. The leadership has already agreed to review the council tax premium discretionary policy, which is looking at you can charge extra council tax for if a place has been empty for long. And the intention for a scrutiny committee, which will probably be communities, to review this in the autumn, and then it's come back to cabinet for approval. So we are well on with this. Fully agree, you know, with your sentiments in the thing, but at this point, there's no reason to agree to that motion. We're not going to support that because we're already doing it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Dale.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. That's welcome to hear that it's already going to be considered as a scrutiny topic. I think we broadly support the sort of thrust of the motion, the need to do more to bring back empty properties back into use, and that includes obviously exploring the new council tax powers. I think the caveat and the strong feeling from our group was that there needs to be the carrot as well as the stick. We have had the E.ON scheme in the past, which has been very successful. So more schemes like that would be very useful. It is a significant issue for the district, but it's not nearly as significant as it is in other areas. And I think the one thing that we would also say is we have to be mindful of the impact on the tourist industry around second properties. We all agree that tourism is hugely important to North East Derbyshire. I'm not saying that should preclude action, but we should take that into account in a thorough way as part of a scrutiny review.
Yeah.
So I think I was going to suggest an amendment to the motion to delete some of those powers, but I mean, as it's going to go to scrutiny anyway, I think we'd be happy to vote against, I think, on that basis. And I think as part of that scrutiny review, I'd really request that we go through some of the ramifications, all of the unintended consequences. We just need to be really mindful of those, I think.
Any other comments? Councillor Hancock, you wish to exercise your right now?
Excuse me. Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I mean, just to pick up on Councillor Dale's point, I think the key part is long-term empty properties. I know it does mention second homes. In terms of both members who have spoken, the actual motion is to take it to scrutiny anyway. So voting against it, you're actually voting against your own policy. So I'm really not clear where your basis is on there. So logic says you would be supporting it.
Councillor Shipman to reply.
If I may just use the words of Councillor Pickering, it's all well and good having empty promises, but the whole point is that we adopt motions that back up those alleged promises and the work that's already going on. I find it such a bizarre argument to say, well, we're going to do it in autumn, but we can't support a motion that kind of sets that in stone now. It just seems really petty, if I'm honest with you. And I thought we were being very collaborative, open and transparent with each other.
Thank you. So motion A then, proposed by Councillor Shipman and seconded by Councillor Hancock. All those in favour of the motion? All those against? Any abstentions? And the motion is lost. So motion B, proposed by Councillor Hancock.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not going to sit and waffle all the way through this. Keep it to a decent length. Yeah, obviously, I mean, we're all conscious that one of our greatest expenditures in the district goes on the leisure centres. We've seen what's happened just over the border in Chesterfield Borough. Obviously, we don't want that occurring here. So it is what I think is a very common sense approach to try and reduce our expenditure on those without impacting on any services that we deliver at all. So on that basis, I move it to council.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Shipman.
Yeah, I'll reserve my right to speak, Chair.
Okay, so I'll go to Councillor Dale first, then Councillor Barker. Councillor Dale.
Thank you, Chair. I think with this motion, from our perspective, it seems quite out of date. Doesn't really reflect the current position. I'm concerned about the degree to which it's scaremongering. Certainly when we were in office, we had absolutely no intention to shut or reduce any leisure provision before May. And if anything, actually, we put it in our manifesto that we wanted to expand leisure provision further out into the community so that it wasn't solely just based on buildings, bricks and mortar. We wanted it to go out further and obviously protect the leisure centres that we do have. I mean, it's nice to see in the motion the reference to Killamarsh, particularly when the Lib Dems voted against us taking Killamarsh into the fold. We see no budgetary reason why the new administration should cut leisure at all, and no reason why this motion or the Lib Dems putting it forward should be scaring people over this. And I think it's worrying to even be in a situation where you're threatening the future of leisure services in the district, given that it's so successful. We know that leisure isn't in the ETIIS because the government has opened up a special funding stream specifically for leisure. And I also think the motion fails to take into account the huge investment that North East Derbyshire has had from the government and the council in recent years. We've obviously had 1.5 million or close to 1.5 million towards Drumfield decarbonisation. We've had £1 million towards Eckington decarbonisation. We've had over £7 million from the government via the town deal towards the rebuilding of Charley Park in Clay Cross, with £1 million specifically allocated towards making it as energy efficient and green as possible. I think from my perspective, I want to propose an amendment to the motion to take account of those aspects, and the fact that actually I think we want to resolve to welcome that investment and actually commit as a council to keeping our leisure centres open and fully functional moving forward. So I've got a paper copy of the amendment if that's useful. If you want me to hand that round to, I've only got 10, but I can hand a few round.
Times are hard.
It's on my home printer, I'm afraid. Yeah. If you can just a few round.
You know it.
Amendments are in bold, I think, on it.
This an amendment?
Changes are in bold, yeah.
Probably. All in bowling.
I don't think our group have it.
Oh, well.
One big one, so it's all in it.
Could I suggest in the future, if we're going to do that, we've all got our tablets with us, why don't you send email to go out during? No, I know you.
I'll send it via
Well,
email now if you like.
Yeah, that would be grand.
Just before we go any further, I think I need to ask Mrs. Sternberg to respond about whether the amendment is actually negating the original motion.
I can't make sense.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I think it does.
What was that, Councillor Dale?
So the 10 sheets of paper down the
So is that withdrawn, Councillor Dale?
Don't see any other way around it, I think. Yeah.
No, I don't think so, no. Apart from nice try.
Nice try, guys.
Did you want to continue saying anything else? Because you still have a bit of time left.
I think on that basis, we'll vote against the motion. Then I think it completely fails to account, as I say, for the huge amount of investment we've already had. I don't like motions that scaremonger around leisure centres being cut, and I think we shouldn't be supporting that. So I think I'd prefer to see a motion here that committed to future leisure, and therefore we'll vote against. Chair, thank you.
So we're staying on this current motion B. So are there any other comments? Councillor Barker.
Yeah, thanks for that. I'm pleased that's the decision made. I couldn't trying to spot the difference here doing my editing. But yeah, I think that's fair. I get your message, but I don't think that personally it's scaremongering. We're happy to support this. It does set out that North East Derbyshire is doing a good job with leisure. We accept that. I think that the emphasis is actually trying to lobby government to put leisure centres, to give leisure centres a bit more money, because we're not too bad. I know we've submitted a bid to Sport England. We're not very hopeful again any money from them because we're not in the position where we might close any swimming pools, whereas other authorities are. So it is a general thing, and I can get why you won't support it, because we're going to write to Lee Rowley and the Prime Minister, but I'm not confident that'll make any difference, but we will do that. So we're happy to support this motion as it stands. Thank you.
Any other comments? Going back. Yes, Councillor. No, Councillor Shipman, you seconded. Do you want to speak now?
Yeah, it was just really on the point that I know Councillor Dale's talking about something completely different, which is the capital investment the district's had, and that's obviously fantastic for our areas. But this is talking about the day-to-day running costs of the leisure centres, and that's why we need to address it, because it's not just an empty, barrel of money that we can keep going from. They are our biggest expense as a district, and it's something that needs addressing. So that's why the motion's put forward. And I'd like to thank Councillor Barker for supporting this motion as well.
And back to you, Councillor Hancock, for right to reply.
Thank you. And yeah, Councillor Barker's got the gist exactly in terms of what the intention of the motion is. So thank you there. I'll just pass comment on Alex's attempt at wit with regard to Killamarsh. Yeah, we did oppose it being taken in, but we're also realistic. That's what we've got. We play with the hand we dealt. No one's scaremongering at all. We know that these things are an issue. We've seen it in the Derbyshire Times. We know what a great effort North East Derbyshire's done, and we want to make sure that we carry on doing it. So we look at every avenue possible. And that's the spirit of the motion. So thank you to those members who will support.
Thank you. So you've got motion B before you, proposed by Councillor Hancock, seconded by Councillor Shipman. All those in favour of the motion? All those against? Any abstentions? Then the motion is carried. Thank you. So we move to motion C, proposed by Councillor Windley.
Thank you, Chair. The tragedy of the child in Rochdale highlighted for us all how important it is that damp and black mould needs to be addressed as soon as possible. I know that patients in my GP practice now include the question, have you any damp or mould in your home? So the GPs are obviously trying to keep track on this as well. And it does highlight how serious this problem can become. So as we move towards winter, I just wondered if at some point we could have a report to bring to council just to see how changes and tracks are being made on this problem in the homes around Derbyshire. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Windley. Do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Hancock.
I'll second that, Chair. I will brief at this time. I think it is important, and I know one thing it makes reference to is the culture of blaming tenants. And of course, as we've had through various of the questions that have just gone, we are going through a cost of living crisis, and people who perhaps could buy equipment that would have helped previously, or they could have run dehumidifiers, it's not an option open to and we should take it forward on that basis.
Thank you. So now we're debating motion C. Councillor Durrant.
Thank you, Chair. We good? Thank you. Thank you, Chair. So thank you to Councillor Windley for raising this. Black mould, a horrible thing, and the death of Awab Ishaq is an awful thing to have read. I'm broadly in favour of the themes of this, if I'm perfectly honest. The concern I have, having dealt with mould, is that with the new way of working with the new council, is that housing and these kind of scrutinies come under the Communities Committee. Would this not be worth being part of the Communities Committee, which I compliment Councillor Windley's passion because she is also a member of the Communities Committee. So I just think it should be going there and moving forward from there.
I'm just before I bring you in, Councillor Barker, I didn't you, Councillor Windley, if you accepted that it should be going back to Communities Committee.
I've got.
Right. Okay. Right. Got it. You accept it. So thank you. So that friendly amendment is accepted, that it goes before a Community Scrutiny Committee. Thank you. Councillor Barker.
Yeah, I got that in my bit to actually amend the things in this motion. I think I'll say what I was going to say is that while we've got the sentiments of the motion, we fully get that. But I think it's worth noting that we as a council and Ricknold are already committed to doing as much as we can with this, and we referred to it in the council plan that in partnership with Ricknold Homes we're going to deliver social housing that meets consumer standards for social housing. And so we will ensure all council homes are well maintained to try and meet the health needs of tenants, which is easier said than done in some cases because of the substandard nature of some houses. But having said that, we will work to monitor the situation in private rented sector, and the more powers we have over that sector, the better. We did feel that it is an attempt to set council policy by the back door. So with that in mind, we wanted to change the last paragraph as well for any scrutiny report to be taken back to Cabinet. So changing the services scrutiny to communities, because as far as I know, that's on your radar already, looking at all this. So can I move the amendment then? All it does is changes services to community and changes council to Cabinet.
Point of order.
Are you happy to second?
I'll second that because I didn't say there was a specific amendment.
Right, so what's the point of order, Councillor Shipman?
Well, the new constitutional wording is it needs to go to a scrutiny and go to cabinet. So therefore, by default,
and I think that's what the
yeah,
amendment is.
He's just saying and he's just saying cabinet, but it's got
No, he said for it to go to
Cabinet, not council.
Cabinet, scrutiny and cabinet.
That's what the wording needs to be. But Councillor Barker's saying just cabinet.
No, Councillor Barker was very clear. He said scrutiny and cabinet. Right, yeah. So hopefully that's clear. Yeah. Okay. Right. So we're now debating the amendment, unless Councillor Hancock.
Thanks, Chair. I think our key point here, because, I absolutely agree with what's just been said about it going to scrutiny and to Cabinet, but I think the key point is we want it to come back to Council. We want a proper report on it. So I'm not happy to accept the amendment on that basis.
Okay. So we're debating the amendment then, so it's not accepted as a friendly amendment. So the amendment is that it would go before a scrutiny committee and to Cabinet. So that's been proposed by Councillor Barker and seconded by Councillor Durrant. So it's debate on the amendment. Councillor Cupit.
Thank you, Chair. I think likewise, I've no problem with it going to the Community Scrutiny Committee, but I think it would be useful for it to come back to Council, as we've all discussed, and I think we all agree this is a serious issue. It is a massive issue for Ricknold, I know from when we were in administration. So I don't know whether you can amend your amendment, Councillor Barker, but even just presumably to say if it's considered by Cabinet in terms of actions, but a report comes back or a presentation to Council, I think we'd be more willing to support it on that basis.
What we don't want to do is set a precedent. I think we've had this debate in past about setting policy at the council meeting before it's gone through scrutiny and all the processes. I think we can, personally, I think we can live with that if it goes to Cabinet first, and then, so we don't want it directly coming straight back to council without going through the due process is what we're trying to say in that amendment. I think that, is that acceptable?
Well, I'm going to put it back to Councillor Hancock and Councillor Winley, because it feels like we're going around in circles now. We've got a friendly amendment to a friendly amendment to a friendly amendment to a, I'm not so sure it's friendly anymore. So, so are we saying now that it's all right for it to go to scrutiny, Cabinet, and then back to council for a report and information for discussion?
Can I say as a presentation to council?
Presentation to, right, so you're saying presentation to council? Yeah. Are you accepting that, Councillor Winley? Right, so that is it. Are we clear so far? So we've now accepted, the Councillor Winley and Councillor Hancock have accepted the friendly amendments. Thank you, Councillor Cupit. So what we're now saying is motion C, with the amendment that it would go before scrutiny committee, then to Cabinet, and then it would come for presentation here at full council. Councillor Durrant. Yes, the community scrutiny. Yes, just to be clear.
Thank you. Yeah, that's okay.
More amendments.
Well done, Chair. You've sorted it.
Yes. Are we all happy with that so far? Right. So that is what we're debating now. So any other comments or questions about that? If not, I'm going to ask Councillor Windley to reply.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'm happy for that. That's in the last paragraph, I think, that a report to come back here when all, it's done the rounds type of thing. And I know it's briefly been touched on in the community scrutinies because I asked about black mould there as well, and some of the questions I asked were answered there. So it'd be good to see a full report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Windley. So just to be ultra clear on motion C, so it's going to go to communities scrutiny, then cabinet, full council for presentation. So the rest of the motion as is. All those in favour? Any against? Any abstentions? And motion C, with its amendment to the amendment to the amendment, has been approved. Thank you. Thank you. Motion D, over to you, Councillor Cupit.
Thank you, Chair. I think this motion has become more topical since I submitted it. I've not checked the news today, but it was actually motivated by local factors and discussions, namely the actions of some other local councils in Derbyshire and concerns raised with me by residents and businesses locally. To start off, I want to be really clear, as this motion sets out at the start, that I'm not in any way distracting from the challenges we face on climate change or the need to take urgent action. However, the protests which this motion seeks to condemn do distract from the climate emergency, in my view. Whilst they have to date been focused on local cities, people have expressed concern to me that they could cause disruption in our local area. So I just want this council to be clear in setting out that we don't support those actions. We absolutely should be working together, and these protests feel to me like we're not, as well as having costs to tourism, the economy and public order, which could be better spent on reducing carbon emissions. This point applies equally to the second part of the motion, focused on car usage, and in our rural district, I would hope this is something all members can get behind. Alongside the national ULEZ debate, I've been particularly concerned by proposals in nearby Derbyshire Dales to try to introduce a charging zone in a local town centre. And because of this and the recent Sheffield Clean Air Zone, I've had lots of residents contact me to express concern this could be introduced in North East Derbyshire, and I know many of my group members have had similar issues raised. Likewise, to focus on Clay Cross as my most local town centre, it's been rumoured to me that chargers to car parks could be introduced, and I hope we're all against that. And so an access to car parking remains a massive issue raised with me by residents, shops and visitors. I know of people who've been put off trying to park or who spend ages idling their vehicle trying to find the right way into local car parks. In Clay Cross, the town deal is a chance to improve some of this and was something our administration was committed to. But I've been concerned by some recent comments, so I hope we can all support this motion to demonstrate to our communities we will continue that work. Whilst we absolutely should support alternative means of travel, buses, cycling and walking, cars and hopefully crucially electric vehicles remain a lifeline for many in this rural area, and so we should not be banning or restricting cars or parking in my view, especially in our town centres. To do so to me just moves traffic elsewhere, and it would also be the death knell of our high streets, when encouraging local journeys, shopping and economies should actually be a positive small step for our environment. Equally, access to car parking remains an issue for many of our rural local villages and on our housing estates. It can be the cause of neighbourly disputes sometimes, it can be dangerous if emergency vehicles or services can't get access, and it can make residents feel isolated if they don't go out, if they don't know if they'll have a space when they'll come back. I know it's a big issue which can't be tackled overnight, but I'm concerned that the new administration has paused the previous strategy that we had, so I hope we'll all support the pledges in this motion to restart that and work together on a cross-party basis to improve car parking in both our town centres and for residents and businesses in our sort of rural villages as well. And that's it, Chair. So happy to propose that.
Thank you. And Councillor Dale for seconding.
Happy to second and reserve the right to speak later.
Thank you, Councillor Dale. Councillor Adlington Stringer.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'm relatively new to this council, as you all know, and I'm absolutely amazed at the amount of political point scoring that's been going on so far. And with every other breath, them being, but we're working together, it just amazes me, really. This motion is outrageous. I can't believe we're actually discussing this afternoon. Councillor Dale referred to scaremongering in the previous motion. This is absolutely scaremongering. It's nothing more. It's electioneering, actually, is what it is, off the back of a general election result. I can't see anything positive in this for the people of North East Derbyshire whatsoever. It's a totally hypocritical motion which seeks to praise the last Conservative administration, cover yourselves in glory for the significant progress already made, whilst reversing that at the same time. We're in an area where bus services are already hard to come by, and yet you're looking at promoting car use across the district. This is fundamentally flawed on every level, and nobody in this room, I believe, should be voting for this motion. We're in a climate crisis, and this is the last thing that we should be voting for. It's point scoring, and it's classic Conservative view on climate. It's seeking to cover yourselves in glory at election time and trying to set yourselves up on the issues that are in the news, in the headlines. And I find that really quite shameful when we're in a serious crisis. Finally, I would like to add that if there are any protests of any nature, I will be there with those people. I will be sat protesting for action. I will not let this council crisis. It's fundamental to the future of our communities, and any proposal against that will be fought against tooth and nail by me and hopefully by many colleagues in this room. So I urge you all to reject this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Barker?
All of that? You're having a laugh. Yeah. Yeah, well said, Frank. I think you've done it there. And I would say apologise for the political point scoring, but that's what we do. That's what I do. It is this environment, and it's sometimes not very healthy, but this is the only opportunity we get to make some political points. So I think that's going to continue, hence my speech. It's a bit confusing, this motion, to be honest. In fact, it's that long-winded, I thought it had come from Lib Dems, because it's one of theirs. Boom, that's one. And it is that just. And we recognise, obviously, there's a climate emergency, and I think that's a moot point, because I know that the county council, you amended a motion to say it's a crisis, not an emergency. So, but we will acknowledge the progress that's made already and continue with them policies. And we might not agree with some of the actions of the groups mentioned, but to deny people the right to demonstrate, it's a slippery slope. That I don't think we should get involved with that. They've obviously got passionate about their cause. And then to jump on from that to the car parking issue seems a bit tenuous. And what I can say is that we all know the car parking strategy has proved a lot more problematic than we thought when it first started. Just allocating some money seemed fine, but then it's a lot more complicated, especially when you're using HRA, that's council tenants' money, to provide car parking for private tenants, like we did in Appinall. That's another one. And given that we're in the process of reviewing that policy, we accept that more car parking is a good thing, and if we can do that and building more electric charging points and totally review how we do that, then that's a good thing. But because of the complicated nature and some of the things what Frank said, we're not going to support this motion.
Thank you. Councillor Reid?
I just want to thank everybody that's had a point of view, and to my apologies, Councillor Stringer. I'm also quite new, so it's very much an experience being here. My understanding of this motion is it's setting out a commitment from council not to make any radical changes at the moment, given, yes, we are in a crisis. Yes, we have a cost of living emergency. And as a father of four, you look at living on the border of Sheffield, going into Sheffield and having to pay 60 quid per day, which isn't happening yet for private motor vehicles, but in other places it is. We are increasing the cost of living. So I think this motion is more confirming, not denying the real sort of scenario of the environment where we live right now, but also setting out to our residents a commitment to be there to support their families in a cost of living crisis, that we aren't going to be suddenly putting in or implementing changes that is going to cost them out of their hip pocket and actually give them a choice of transport or feeding their families. So I would urge Councillor Baker and most of my Labor colleagues that I work with on a district and a parish level would tell you I'm very much for apolitical, doing what's right for our residents. And that's what we're here for first. Our welfare, our primary responsibility is for the welfare of our constituents. And I don't think, I think that this motion sets out to keep that at heart and centre of what it actually sets out to be. Thank you.
Councillor Pickering.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. I mean, it's already been said, it's difficult to know where to go with this motion. The three things together are more like a bit of a rant than anything constructive to put to this council. You know, we are in a political debating chamber and we've got quite a right to do that. We'll expose some of the hypocrisy. And I can remind people that at the council meeting on the 26th of April 2021, you know, this motion starts off by saying we recognise the climate emergency. At that meeting, we proposed a motion to support the climate emergency and ecology bill that would have put a positive action from this council onto taking some real action. And every Tory member, I think, in that council chamber on that day voted against it. So it's difficult for us to know exactly where they're coming from with climate responsibility. And it seems from this motion, if it fits their conversations with voters or it fits their ideology, then it's climate change. And if it doesn't, we want to ignore it. Nationally, I think they're following the national Tory commitment to climate change, which is very weak. And it favours the continued use of oil and gas. And we've seen this morning the Prime Minister committed to issuing hundreds of licenses in the North Sea with a smokescreen of a carbon capture scheme to cover it up. You know, the Conservatives have been responsible for climate damage and fuel poverty. And of course, people want to protest against that. The kids are starving, the cold in their homes. You know, there's damp on and mold on their walls, although this council's more positive about that. And the Tories didn't change that when they had an opportunity to vote on the private renters bill. They opposed a motion for good quality housing. So they're responsible for what's been going off. Of course, people will complain and they want to protest. We've got some protest groups. They do cause some disruption. By and large, they're peaceful. There have been odd outbreaks. And to try either through legislation in Parliament or to try in this council chamber here to suppress people's right to have their voice and say something against it is quite wrong for us to do to try and silence our constituents. The Tories have continued an attack on the law and traffic, neighbourhoods, proper public transport, alternative energy, and have exacerbated these principles on lowering their commitment to climate change ever since David Cameron referred to it as green crap. There's been no official sustainable commitment to it nationally or locally. And I know you'll come back and you'll tell us in a minute all what you think you've done and how that's benefited this North East Derbyshire. But I think people know what the real answers are and they know what it is locally. And that's where we are today in this council chamber, and that's why you're over there. You've no place giving us any lectures on the green agenda. You've got the worst record in Europe ever since your party turned against a positive green agenda. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Durrant.
Thank you. Sorry. I wasn't going to comment on this, but I feel like I've been forced to by my councillor colleague over there and by Frank, Councillor Stringer. I'm a father too. of twins. And I can tell you, having twins is expensive, a lot more expensive than having individual children one at a time at times. I have to take my kids to the next village over to get them to school because my local school, Grassmoor, is oversubscribed. But I can't take a bus because the bus is unreliable. Equally, the pathway going from Grassmoor to North Wingfield is terrifyingly small, smaller than the width of my shoulders. So it's a bit scary when a bus goes past me, and I think it's going to whack me upside the head. So my point is this: I just find it a bit galling to say that we're going to have the councillors who have raised and seconded this to be the one that's in charge of transport when it's so unbelievably and ruinously expensive to take public transport to take your kids to school, because it's £2. Yeah, it's a £2 cap. That's wonderful, but it's £2 for one stop. It's £2 for two stops. So if you go into school one or two stops over, congratulations, that's £2. That's now £4. That's now £8 while you have to pick them up. And if you have to get a pass, you can't get a basic pass. So it's just galling that this has been raised. And this is not supporting green, it's just buzzwords. It's not supporting people in a cost of living crisis. And I just wanted to raise, as a parent, how disgusting I find this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hancock.
Thank you, Chair. I say this as one of the few members here that don't actually drive. Public transport in our this is a really haphazard motion, to be honest. There's some things in it that I do think I would support, like maximising EV charging and improving the car parking strategy, both of which are an issue. But it's small parts of a whole that really doesn't work for me. We should be calling on improved public transport. I mean, I live in Tupton. It's actually quicker to walk to Claycross than to get the bus, because the bus detours all around Homegate and everywhere else. It's 10 minutes longer to get the bus than it is to walk. But it is a big district. We have got problems. We need to look at focusing on that. This in itself, to me, I don't know. I mean, as it stands, I'd be inclined to vote against it, but I think I'd probably say to councillors Cupit and Dale, do they want to withdraw it and bring it back as a better motion in future, rather than have it fall and not have the opportunity to bring it back for 6 months. But yeah, as it stands, I think there's a lot more that needs to do. Councillor Reid, I think, made a very valid point in his speech about the cost of living crisis, but this doesn't even address that. So you're supposed to read between the lines on that rather than being a direct motive to it. So yeah, I think there's good parts, but on the whole, it doesn't work, and I couldn't vote for the whole just for the sake of two things that's in it.
Thank you. Councillor Shipman.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, as has been mentioned, it's like the Conservative group have just got a bowl of spaghetti and thrown it at the wall and want to throw it at the wall and see what sticks. It's just all over the place. It really is all over the place. You've got, on one hand, trying to stop people using their democratic right to protest on issues that matter to them, which is their right, and if it falls outside of the law, the police pick that up. So I don't know why the district council is discussing that. And just to pick up on some other points about, particularly, and I had to laugh when I saw the about the money for car parking. And as Councillor Barker will know, Councillor Thacker will know, and various other people in the former audit committee, it's an issue we debated, I think it was every meeting for about 2 years, because there was this pot of money, but the money was being spent wherever the leader wanted it to. There was no strategy behind it. It was, is it in Unstone Ward or not? And unfortunately, areas like Tuptons, Claycross, Wingworths, Sherlands, they all got left out of that debate. And to this day, we are still waiting for additional car parking. And I think that were introduced, what, 3 years ago? So there's, you know, it was funny, to be fair. And Councillor Durant stole my thunder, because the fact that public transport is dire in North East Derbyshire, first of all, the Conservatives that are running the county council pulled funding in 2020, I think it was, for buses, and only because of some central government funding which has come back, it's like robbing Peter to pay Paul, that they're now looking at bringing back additional services. Well, the Conservatives at County Council could look at public transport and make it better for the likes of Councillor Durant that's trying to get his kids to school, myself that's trying to, go and visit friends and family in other parts of North East Derbyshire. We have got no choice but to use cars at the moment because public transport is so bad. And there's only one group in this council chamber that's responsible for that at county level. It's not Labour, it's not the Lib Dems, it's not the Greens, it's the Conservatives. So I'll be voting against this, Chair.
Yeah. I started to pick that up. So, any other comments? Councillor Birkin.
Thank you, Chair. Just very briefly, we had spaghetti last night, Ross, so I can see where you're going. I didn't spill it over the wall, but near enough. I think there's a danger in this motion. It starts off, end of the first paragraph, that we condemn the disruptive action of organisations. That's a very, 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 very dangerous line to go down. Unfortunately, the people who are supporting such ideas, i.e. to condemn actions, never appreciate what support they have had by other people making actions, taking a fight for them on their behalf. And I think that's something that's lost completely in our society today. And it's very important that we maintain that. All right, you're not going to get to down the road, you're not going to be able to buy this or that for some small portion of time, but it is really, really very limited, the disruption that you get. It's blown out of all proportion by the media because there's nothing else to go at. I think at the same time, so it's missing the point. I think that's missing the point. I think at the same time, the three pledges that we've got there, they're each missing the point as well, because there are more important things to do about car usage. Do we need to have car usage? Shouldn't we get better support, as has been said by colleagues, from buses or whatever it might be? But just to say we will keep car usage because we need to have better car parking and better electric vehicles, that's not going to be a solution. Electric vehicles is about 5 or 6 times as heavy as ordinary ones. So we think the county councillors are not doing very well with the potholes at the moment. I understand that electric vehicles are going to make bridges are going to be falling down 10, 20 times earlier than they would normally have done. So I think it's trying to gloss over things, and it's hiding a lot of points which are very, very important to the rest of us. And therefore, I think if only for the first bit, which isn't one of the pledges, i.e. banning protest, then everybody should be voting against that. We've all benefited from somebody else protesting on our behalf, and you should never forget that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I think that's everyone, so I'm going to come back to Councillor Dale.
Thank you, Chair. I've quite enjoyed that debate. I think I've made a mental note to put forward, or to collectively put forward more motions like this, to be honest. I mean, on the first point around protest, no one is suggesting that people shouldn't have the right to peacefully protest, and that's not what this motion says. It's condemning the disruptive actions of those two organisations. And I think, when you're hearing about people who are unable to get to dying relatives because there's a motor blockade on the M1 or whatever, I think that there is reason to condemn those actions, and I think it's important that we take that stand. And I think if you did a poll of most people in North East Derbyshire, the vast majority would say that they don't support the actions of people who want to stop them from getting on with their day-to-day lives. We talk about freedom and liberty. Well, there's freedom to do something, but there's also freedom from something. And I think it's important that we support residents and make them aware that we do support them in getting on with their day-to-day lives. Interesting that Councillor Adlington Stringer will be first on the protest march. I've made a note of that, and I'm sure his residents in Wingleworth will be pleased to hear that as well. Just on the usage of the HRA, I mean, certainly in Apenall, they're very happy with it, and it's gone very well, and it's actually really supported. So the idea that it's only in Apenall, though, is a nonsense. I think the list included Renishaw, the original list of the first year of Renishaw. There was some in Grassmore and North Wingfield, I think. There's one in Ross's ward as well, a trial programme in Ross's ward as well. So I'm surprised that that's coming back. I think the fundamental fact was we recognised there were shortcomings of that scheme. My own regret is that we didn't push on with it as quick as we should have done. We had challenges in terms of capacity in the engineering team, and we should have pushed on more. But the key factor for me was that was an issue that was ignored for the past 30 years. As far as I can see, I have no evidence that the previous Labour administrations ever addressed car parking in our estates. And no surprise to anyone, people have more and more cars and have had more and more cars over the past few decades. So we have more of a problem. And this idea that it's solely about benefiting private homeowners, that's not true. It was only available in areas where the majority of householders were tenants. And I think that the difference is our administration was willing to do something about it. And sadly, it sounds like that's under review now, so it probably won't happen. I think that's all I want to say, and I'll hand over then to Councillor Cupid.
Thank you, Councillor Cupid, to respond.
Thank you, Chair. As Councillor Dale says, I've quite enjoyed the debate. It's disappointing, if I'm honest, particularly from some of the Labour members, at the language that is once again used of "I'm disgusting" just because you don't agree with me. Again, that used to come up when we were in administration, and I think that it sets a nasty tone to the debate. I just because I disagree with you, I have no reason to call you disgusting. So I just wanted to note that it was disappointing. As Councillor Dale says, and as I said in my opening speech, I was really clear that I'm not denying climate change. I'm not denying the right to protest, fully support that. It was the disruptive nature of the protests that this motion was seeking to highlight and to raise concern against. And then as a second sort of final closing point, again, I'm pretty disappointed that the debate has taken the stance of focusing on public transport and, in Councillor Pickering's case, starving children, that actually this debate wasn't. I recognised in my opening speech that we should encourage public transport and we should do everything we can, and that's certainly something we're doing at county. But this debate was about our town centres and car usage and about the car parking strategy. And again, I was a little bit disappointed in, I think it was Councillor Barker's comments, that the car parking strategy is a bit complicated and problematic, so therefore let's not do it. That was sort of the implication. So it's sort of like, that's why this discussion was setting out. Let's be constructive on it. Let's work together. Let's find a way forward on it and on improving town centre car parking. So a little bit disappointed at the way that the debate has gone, because it was a constructive motion. But yeah, happy to push to the vote. And can I just ask for a recorded vote as well, please, Chair?
Right, we've got three people then asking for it to be a recorded vote. So this is for motion D, proposed by Councillor Cupid and seconded by Councillor Dale. So we are going to move to a recorded vote. So your name will be called. So you need to say whether you are for, against, or abstain.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Winley. Councillor Weatherall. Councillor Welton. Councillor Thacker.
For.
Councillor Stone. Councillor Spooner. Councillor Christine Smith.
Against.
Councillor Caroline Smith. Councillor Skinner. Councillor Shipman.
Against.
Councillor Rouse.
Against.
Councillor Rowe. Councillor Reid.
For.
Councillor Pickering.
Against.
Councillor Peterson.
Against.
Councillor Morley. Nicky Morley. Councillor Jeff Morley.
Against.
Councillor Liggett. Councillor Tony Lacey. Councillor Carol Lacey. Councillor Kerry.
Against.
Councillor William Jones. Councillor Pam Jones. Councillor Higgin. Councillor Hartshorn.
Against.
Councillor Hancock. Councillor Garr. Thank you. Yeah, sorry. Councillor Foster.
For.
Councillor Fletcher. Councillor Elliott. Councillor Durrant.
Against.
Councillor Dayton. Councillor Dale.
For.
Councillor Cupid. Councillor Cornwall.
Against.
Councillor Cooper.
Against.
Councillor Clough.
For.
Councillor Clegg. Councillor Cheetham.
Against.
Councillor Birkin.
Against.
Councillor Beach. Councillor Baxter. Councillor Barry.
Against.
Councillor Barker.
Against.
Councillor Baker.
For.
And Councillor Adlington Stringer.
Proudly against.
There's no extra points.
Put that way.
Against.
Get back
So
for this
you've got
one,
those
we need a
figures,
plan.
yeah.
So the vote is 14 votes for and 32 votes against. So the motion is lost. It's just caused a walkout. So the motion is lost.
I think the operative word's motion there. We can't.
Is this a good time to remind people about the SMT car wash? Perhaps not. We do bicycles as well, apparently. Anyway, so we're going to motion E. Over to you, Councillor Dale.
Thank you, Chair. I'll keep this as brief as I can, recognising that we've been on for a while now. I think the point I'd wish to make is that no sooner had the dust settled on the recent local election campaign than the Labour Party leader has very cynically come out with some concerning statements on the Greenbelt in relation to relaxing Greenbelt planning restrictions and tasking all new Labour council leaders with reviewing development policies to provide more housing. Also seeking to introduce top-down or reintroduce top-down mandatory housing targets, which were scrapped in 2010 or 11, I believe, by the coalition government. Councillor Barker knows very well that I've written to him, and I'm very grateful for his reply. But I think, in the interest of being open and transparent, I didn't really feel like I felt particularly enlightened by the reply and what the local Labour Party's view of the Greenbelt is and how they intend to review those local planning policies. And I think residents deserve to be able to hear that from the horse's mouth, as it were, in terms of what steps are going to be taken in relation to the Greenbelt and whether the Greenbelt is safe. So, as I say, we keep being reminded about being an open and transparent council. I'd urge the leadership of the council to take this opportunity to spell out exactly what they have in store for the Greenbelt and join us in opposing any relaxation of it by supporting this motion.
Thank you. And Councillor Cupid to second.
Yes, Chair, happy to second and reserve the right to speak.
Thank you. So Councillor Barker.
I'm at horse now, am I? Crikey. Again, thanks for this motion, and I think first I can pick up from this motion and the letter that you sent me after about 2 days as leader, thank you for that, is that you obviously think Keir Starmer's going to be next Prime Minister. You won't be too worried about what he was saying else. I've also listened closely to what's been said. I went to the LJ conference, as I said. I listened to Angela Rayner, and I've got a recording of her speech on here if you want to listen from the horse's mouth. I'm sure you won't. But I think what I've picked up from that is that the Labour Party, and I've read what Keir Starmer said and all that you refer to in your letter, that the Labour Party is committed to building more houses. That's true. Given that the Tories had failed to meet the house building targets that we should have been building over the last 12 years. And Angela Rayner did make it clear that it's not about the expense of destroying the Greenbelt. I can, on every occasion, I think Lisa Nandy said it as well. What's been said is there's certain bits of land like garage plots, car parks and rubbish tips that are derelict and have been derelict for ages that happen to be in the Greenbelt. And it seems obvious we've got to consider developing them. And I've heard that said on several occasions. I don't know, the review of the local plan, which could have started 18 months ago, like Steve says, but for obvious reasons that wasn't. So we will start that review, and I'm sure there'll be plenty of opportunity for communities to get involved. And I'm sure you'll play your part in ensuring residents will be encouraged to take part in that process. And again, I can see what you're doing. It's a bit like Frank said earlier. I know you're going to keep on with this now until election, but it is just political point scoring to try and make the point and scaremonger people that the Labour Party is going to build on the Greenbelt, and we're not. That is not what that's all about. We've got to get house numbers up, but we've got to do it in the correct manner. We've got to build the right homes in the right places, and that's what we're committed to. Thank you.
Councillor Hancock.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I shan't use the exact words I used, but I must admit I was surprised that this motion actually even appeared on the agenda because it's all very speculative. It's not based in any kind of fact at all. It's all hypotheticals. What if this happens? What if that happens? We really don't know. I mean, I fully support any motion that puts decisions in local hands. And I think hopefully we will have that, but we don't even know what decisions any future government would take, what political colour that government would take. So I think kind of preempting that is foolish. I don't support the motion purely on the fact that it is hypothetical, but we, as I say, fully agree that it should be decisions that are taken at local level. I'm wary about government setting targets, but if local councils aren't following them and aren't meeting demand, then that perhaps needs to be done. But again, everything needs to be put in the hands of local people where it can. But this motion, if we scrap the first half and said, let's get on with the next local plan, then I'd be fully behind it, but it doesn't. And I am also going to add, we've seen just this last week, the fact that the local plan isn't worth the paper it's written on, with an appeal that we actually successfully defended when we didn't have one. That's now been put through now that we do have one, and we're building in the settlement development limit between Tupton and Wingleworth. So I think we've also got to question what the purpose of the local plan is, because it ain't being adopted by planning inspectorate.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Councillor Foster, then Councillor Adlington Stringer, then Councillor Weatherall.
Thank you, Chair. I know councillors have said that we're playing politics with this, and we've heard from Councillor Hancock talk of hypothetical situations, but this is a fairly simple one. It resolves to protect the green belt and greenfields in any future local plan review, and it asks that residents be kept fully informed. It doesn't ask much more than that. There's nothing else. This is fairly simple, this. So I'm very happy to support this, and I think, rather than just going back all over the place and thinking of what might have been said or what's might behind it, I'd say just, read the motion and see it for what it is. It's there to protect the greenbelt and no more than that. And it's a subject which is really close to my heart. So I'm more than happy to support this, Chair. Thank you.
Councillor Adlington Stringer.
Thank you. As someone who's naturally inclined to be protecting the green belt, you might be surprised to hear that I'm not going to be supporting this motion. And I'm so disappointed. That so quickly, after having just said what I've just said about the motion before, which seemed to want to stop protest, that we're now having another one, which the first half of it, I thought I was reading a biography about Keir Starmer. I'm really unsure why this is coming to council. It doesn't set out anything practical, really. It's just a political point scoring game, and that is all that Conservatives seem to be able to do at this moment. In echoing what Councillor Hancock has said, I would absolutely support local decisions being made by local people and protecting green spaces wherever possible, of course, but this is purely hypothetical and purely political point scoring, and I think the Conservatives should go and look long and hard in the mirror before they bring another motion to council.
Councillor Weatherall.
Thank you. Yes, Chair, just wanted to put a marker down really, because representing a very, very rural community as I do, it was a bit of a dismay and surprise to learn that none of it is covered by Greenbelt legislation. And I just want to put that marker down. It's something that I'd like to pursue and think about in the future for the communities of Ashover.
Councillor Shipman.
Thank you, Chair. I wonder if Councillor Foster will understand this simple statement, in that when the Conservatives were in administration in 2021, when the local plan was approved, that administration decided to take parts of the Greenbelt out so it could be built on as part of the local plan. So, yes, your motion may be very simple, but I think it's very hypocritical and contradictory of what your administration did only 2 years ago. The problem we've got with the whole Greenbelt debate is that it gets people to go, we want to build on Greenbelt, we don't want to build on Greenbelt. And in fact, if you go out and speak to people in the community, the bits of land that they want to protect are the Greenbelt and Greenfield directly adjacent to those existing settlements. They would be open to building new settlements away from the existing ones to meet that housing need. But what do we end up with? This Punch and Judy debate where it's, well, I don't want to build on Greenbelt. Well, no, you want to build on Greenbelt. That's not helpful. This council has got to keep building houses into the future. This current local plan is going to expire at some point, and we're going to be having another debate about where the next lot of houses go. So if you keep saying, we want to protect this area, we want to protect that area forever, you never build any houses. In fact, that's why we've seen such a high supply of houses being built around Clay Crossing in my ward in Wingworth, that you're just going to concentrate them to one specific area. So if you're not going to build, currently, if you adopted this policy as it's written today, you would literally be only building on garage sites that are available. Well, we all know, and anybody with at least one brain cell knows, that you can't meet the housing need just building on the existing brownfield sites. And I'm sure the Conservatives, when they're in administration, knew this. So I don't know why they're proposing a motion which would essentially hamstrung any future administration on this motion that would be adopted today. So I really can't support this motion, and I don't even understand why they're wasting our time today debating it.
Councillor Pickering.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, I think the only really simple thing about this motion from the Conservatives is it's more scaremongering. They've picked sound bites out of various news items and statements that's been made and turned them into hypothetical scaremongering. I don't know whether this is just part of their political lobbying or what, but we have got some facts. In 2019, you know, the Conservative group promised the people of Killamarsh they'd protect them from development in the Greenbelt. Since then, there's been a massive housing development that's got planning permission in Killamarsh, and where are the Tories? They've ducked and dived the issue, they're away from it, they're not making any comment, and they've avoided the fallout. What they could look at quite positively is that we've got North East Derbyshire District Council, a 5-year housing land supply statement that's required from the government that identifies all available building land for us to use to meet our housing commitment for the next 5 years. And I can't see anything in there that's Greenbelt. So we've got no intentions of, at this moment in time, of any developments in the Greenbelt. And we've just recently in the process of updating our statement of consultation on planning, how that takes place. They can read that, so businesses, the public and everybody else will have their say in any future developments. They're public documents, Chair. This is just mischievous scaremongering, and I won't be supporting this motion. Thank you.
Any other comments? Councillor Clough.
Thank you, Chair. In relation to Killamarsh, can I just ask where the Labour representatives were when the appeal was heard? Conservatives backed the Rage Group and were at the appeal every single day. Not one day did Labour turn up to that appeal.
Thank you. Thank you.
We fought tooth and nail and to save that land, and it just amazes me that Labour are turning around and saying that it's our fault. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And Councillor Carol Lacey.
Thank you. As a new representative for Killamarsh West, I would just like to refute what Councillor Clough has just said. The Killamarsh people, the Labour group, were always behind Rage, and we stood up as and when we could. If we would have had a neighbourhood plan in place, we would have been able to stop all this building, but we didn't have one, and the Conservatives are to blame for that.
Thank you. Any other comments? If not, I'm going to come back to Councillor Cupit for your response as seconder.
Thank you, Chair. Just before I let Councillor Dale reply in more detail, I think, as Councillor Foster said, this is quite a simple motion. You know, be happy to remove the sort of narrative around it. but it's quite a simple motion to protect the greenbelt and greenfields in future local plans and to work together on preparing another local plan, given that previously we haven't had a plan for a decade in North East Derbyshire, and that's what led to a lot of the speculative developments that and I was quite amused by Councillor Pickering's comments just now, saying that he's sorted a 5-year land supply and he's sorted a new statement of consultation, because that they were the two things we did before the elections in May, and the 5-year land supply is something that's been in place for quite a long time, and the 5-year land supply does not protect you on its own. You have to have up to date planning policy documents. So yeah, disappointed with the opposition comments today not to support this, because as Councillor Foster says, I think it's quite a clear thing and could send a clear reassurance to residents that we want to continue protecting the greenbelt and greenfields.
Councillor Dale, for your right of reply.
Thank you, Chair. Just taking the points in turn, I was interested to hear from Councillor Barker. It sounded a bit like Sir Keir Starmer came out with some comments and then a load of ministers were wheeled out to row back on them because they got a bit fidgety and a bit scared that actually the comments he'd made weren't that popular with the general public. So not surprising that Angela Rayner and Lisa Nandy and others have come out and rowed back on that. The point about the local plan review and the fact that we could have started earlier, I don't really believe that we could. And actually, most importantly, I don't think we should be lectured on being slow on the local plan. The last local plan expired in 2011, and over the 7 years that followed, the Labour administration had still not got it to an adoptable standard. We then had to inherit it and tried to amend it, given the challenges that we faced in terms of the Greenbelt. But any lecturing of us about being slow on the local plan is just absolutely ridiculous. And the result of having a local plan that was out of date for so many years is that we had absolutely wanton speculative development all in the south of the district, thousands of houses approved that we could not stop because we did not have a local plan in place. And I respect Councillor Hancock's point around the Nevermore Road appeal, and it's disappointing that the inspector has gone against the local plan there. But time and time again, we had appeal after appeal, and every single one of them we lost because we did not have a local plan. And that fundamentally is Labour's fault, because they didn't get the backsides into gear and get it approved. They handed us an absolute car crash of a problem. There were sites, several sites promoting development on the Greenbelt. I mean, Councillor Pickering raises the point around Kilmarsh. That site was first put forward by a Labour administration. There were 860 houses first proposed in Dronfield. We worked tooth and nail, we fought tooth and nail to get those sites out. As a Conservative group, we campaigned alongside residents and we reduced that down to about 200 in Dronfield. We got 400 houses out of the local plan in Eckington by Councillor Kenyon effectively being at every single planning appeal meeting for 3 weeks. That's how we did it. So being lectured by the Labour Party around approving sites in the Greenbelt is absolutely verging on ridiculous, and I can't even believe it's been raised, to be honest. So I'm happy to move the recommendation or move the motion to a vote, and I'd ask that there's a recorded vote on this. Thank you, Chair.
Right, we've got Councillor Cupid and Councillor Foster also calling for a recorded vote. So again, we go to a roll call of names. So this is motion E, proposed by Councillor Dale, seconded by Councillor Cupid, and Mrs Sternberg will call your name. So it's either for, against, or abstain.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Winley. Councillor Weatherall. Councillor Welton. Councillor Thacker. Councillor Stone. Councillor Spooner. Councillor Christine Smith. Councillor Caroline Smith. Councillor Skinner. Councillor Shipman. Councillor Rouse. Councillor Rowe. Councillor Reid. Councillor Pickering.
Against.
Councillor Peterson. Councillor Nicky Morley. Councillor Jeff Morley. Councillor Liggett. Councillor Tony Lacey. Councillor Carol Lacey. Councillor Kerry.
Against.
Councillor William Jones. Councillor Pam Jones. Councillor Higgin. Councillor Hartshorn.
Against.
Councillor Hancock. Councillor Gare.
Against.
Against, thank you. Councillor Foster.
For.
Councillor Fletcher.
Against.
Councillor Elliott. Councillor Durrant.
Against.
Councillor Dayton,
For.
Councillor Dale,
For.
Councillor Cupit,
For.
Councillor Cornwall,
Against.
Councillor Cooper,
Against.
Councillor Clough,
For.
Councillor Clegg, Councillor Cheetham,
Against.
Councillor Birkin,
Against.
Councillor Beach, Councillor Baxter,
Against.
Councillor Barry, Councillor Barker,
Against.
Councillor Baker,
For.
and Councillor Adlington Stringer.
For the leaflet headline, against.
Yeah.
So the results of the vote for motion E, it's 15 votes for, 30 against, 1 abstention. So the motion is lost. So item 14, Chairman's urgent business, just a reminder about the training opportunity tomorrow with regard to housing. Can I thank you very much for your attendance and declare the meeting closed.
Thank you, Chair.